Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Warrior Stories podcast, where we deep dive into the unique health journeys of everyday people like you and me. Health is often taken for granted, but it is not the default setting for a lot of us. So that's why we are here to empower people to keep fighting, keep searching for answers, and to know that they are not alone. If that resonates with you, then go ahead and click that subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we have a new episode out. Today, we have Anne Fickel here with us. She's been homeschooling two teenagers for several years, which is in and of itself really amazing. She is an independent podcast manager, which I'm very excited about. I heard that and I was like, oh, she's my people. Here we go. And she is the small groups director at her church in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you so much for joining us, Anne. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. We connected here a little bit ago and you told me a little bit about your story and I was just like, this is something that I know so many people understand. Because you talked about advocacy, about having to really fight for answers. And you manage a really intense illness. So you have cystic fibrosis. I've only known one or two people with cystic fibrosis. And after doing my research, I realized I had no idea the intensity of it and how many different parts of the body it can affect, all the different areas of your life that it can impact. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and hear your personal experience. Can you talk a little bit about like the early days, like maybe when things first started to kick off?
Yes, actually, let me talk a little bit about what cystic fibrosis is, just to
Absolutely.
so people would
Perfect.
know. It's a degenerative lung disease, and it causes your lungs to slowly but surely kind of get full of all these different cysts, which actually constricts your airways slowly but surely. So you don't typically get better on CF, and you typically end up in lung transplant situation, get another 10 years perhaps with a lung transplant. And hardly ever after a lung transplant do you get a second pair of lungs. So it's terminal. As I have gotten older, the life expectancy has gone up. So
Which is exciting.
yes, I've always kind of chased it, kind of been right there with it. But there has been some really new breakthroughs, which has been completely life-changing.
That's what I've
So,
seen. That's so
yes,
exciting.
but we are not gonna get to that first. I love to get to the end, but, so just growing up, a lot of it ended up being, also, it affects all the mucous membranes in your whole
Mhm.
body, and so a lot of CFers have, uh, gut issues and things like that because we don't process the food and we don't get the nutrients that we would in as a regular person, a regular functioning person. Um, so a lot of CFers have to take pills that help the digestion process so we can gain weight because a lot of times we're low weight. And so we struggle with that. But then there's a large piece with the lungs too.
Mhm.
So, I was fairly healthy growing up. I did have a meconium ileus, which is right when I was born, they had to take a part of my small intestine out because it was a blockage. And so I've always had to take pills to digest with every food, with all the food that I eat. And about 7 years old, I started doing breathing treatments. And my mom would do this thing where they kind of do this to get your junk moving. The thing with mucus is in your lungs, the mucus doesn't move because it's thicker in comparison to a normal functioning person, where it kind of just flows through your lungs. And so that's what causes the infection. So when I get a cold, a lot of times I'll end up getting a lung infection.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different things that kind of are affected. And so you can just slowly but surely, the insides of your lungs kind of erode because you don't have as much airway space. Um, anyway, so in college, I tried to go away to college, but wasn't able to. And so, but I lived a fairly normal life. I just had to do treatments in the morning and at night. But I was fairly healthy, and just slowly but surely as I got older, my lung functions decreased. And I had various random issues here and there, but nothing horrible.
Mhm.
As I got into my late 30s and into my 40s, I started to have more issues and have more infections and that kind of thing. And so, typically with a CFer, we have to go in and get IV antibiotics. Um, I was every 6 months, and for a while it was every 3 months, but most of the time it was every 6 months. And so, that wears down your veins and wears down your body and all of that sort of
Absolutely.
thing. So anyway, that was kind of the general flow of my life until probably in my mid 30s when I started to realize I couldn't work full time. I couldn't do some things I really need to be able to focus on my health. So I was in and out of the hospital here and there. We did adopt 2 boys, and so, when they were born, so that was great. I was a mom and busy,
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
um, so it was about thir I don't know when it was. So sometime in my 30s, I started getting really achy and
Mm,
it would flare up and I would be so achy. And my doctors were kind of like, "Yeah, it's probably inflammation." And they
yeah,
would just,
that sounds about right.
yeah, and they didn't help. They didn't help with it. They tried here and there, but it took 2 years it took 2 years of me asking and bugging and asking and bugging and they would send me, or they would have me do labs or they would send me to a different doctor just to make sure that, various things are okay. But it took 2 years for them to finally call it CF related arthritis.
Mm,
But the thing is for me, I had to fight to figure out what this was. I had to keep bringing it up and had to keep bringing it up.
yep.
And
Man, that
I would
sounds familiar.
yes, and I would find things that would work, but only work for a time. And so it wasn't until I went to see, oh, what's an arthritis doctor? What are they called?
Rheumatologist.
Thank you, a rheumatologist.
I go see
Um,
mine here in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, so there you go. So I went to see a rheumatologist, and she did not call it that, but she did check for arthritic sorts of markers and stuff, and she put me on a medicine. And at that time, I was taking some supplements that they're the only supplements I've ever taken, like vitamins essentially, but it's a different kind of vitamin that had a lot more vitamins and minerals than your typical over the counter because I
Mm.
had done a lot of research about that. And it was the only vitamin that I actually felt more energetic taking. The rest of them I never felt a blooming thing. So
Well, and
so
so many of them like aren't high quality. They don't
yes.
actually have the stuff in them that they advertise, or
Yes.
they need like even just magnesium. You can't really absorb magnesium without other things with it.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
recently learned that one from personal experience. So,
Yes, yeah, so that's the thing that these vitamins were definitely high quality, high researched, they're pharmaceutical grade, all these things. So what I found is the medicine that my rheumatologist gave and the vitamins together were the things that I had to take in order to keep the inflammation down.
mm.
But that was something that I did because my doctors would have never said, "You know what? You need to take these vitamins."
Well,
They
I've
would have never said
never
that.
yeah, I've only had a doctor recommend a vitamin to me
Yes.
one time, and
Yep.
it's because I have severe photosensitivity, and they were
Mhm.
like, "You should probably take some more vitamin D." And I was like, vitamin D starved at the time, and so I was like,
Yeah.
"Why didn't you tell me this so much sooner?"
Well,
So,
and that for me has been the beef because I have realized that the training, it seems, though a lot of my doctors are very knowledgeable about medication, they don't have the knowledge because they took one, nutrition course in college and that was it. And so they just don't have the depth. And also they're not allowed to say certain things. And so
mhm.
it was really frustrating. So
I feel we laugh about it because we have
yeah,
to. Like,
right,
that's the only
sure,
response we can have, really,
right, and,
other than crying, and there's no point.
yes, and I think for me, that's part of the reason why I wanted to come on and talk about it. Because for me, that made a difference, and I can't share it enough because people think, "Oh, you're just peddling the vitamins," and I'm like, "No, dude, it's the only thing that I've never noticed that made a difference in this area of my life," and that's a big deal when you're struggling with all these different health issues, "Oh, I solved this problem," right?
Yeah, that's a big
So
deal.
Yes, yes. So there was that issue, and then I have one other one that I did as well. I had pain in my neck and I couldn't figure it out. And my doctors just were like, I don't know. And I spent a lot of time doing this, like
Mhm.
driving, I would push on it because it helped. And it was until a friend of mine said, you should go see a chiropractor. And I was like, oh, okay. Did
What could
any of
they
my doc
possibly do?
I know. And did any of my doctors ever say, go see a chiropractor? No, they did not. They did not. And so I went. I had to go 2 times and I was feeling better. So
Right?
it was really frustrating, and that was a year and a half I dealt with pain until I went to see a chiropractor. So, I think in some ways, I feel like the culture looks to medicine as to solve the problems, and unfortunately, they only see it through their little pharmaceutical lens, and the pharmaceutical lens doesn't always solve our problems. And so, that has been something that, has really helped me to go, "No, I gotta figure this out myself," because my doctors only have a certain amount of knowledge about it. So,
Oh my gosh. Hearing you talk about this, it because I don't have cystic fibrosis. I
yeah,
have other chronic illnesses.
yes,
But this is absolutely what my experience has been. It's I'm telling doctors, here's what's going on, and they'll either try and throw a pill at me, or they're just like, well, let's do a test. And sometimes, and this is probably not everyone's experience. I hope it's not.
right.
But like sometimes I would go and get tests done and they would just never tell me what the results were. Or like
Wow.
if the results were fine, like within
They
normal
wouldn't call you.
ranges, they just wouldn't call
Mhm,
me. And so I'd have to
mhm.
call and be like, "Hey, I'm still hurting. I'm still in pain. What did my lab say? Can we follow up on this data that we're trying to compile to get information?"
Yes,
Like I just want them to use the scientific method. Let's get a hypothesis. Let's test it. Let's get our results, analyze the results, go from there. And
yes,
it feels like a lot of the time they'll go through one or two steps and then they just don't try anything else. They're like, "Well, that didn't work. Oh well."
right, and that's it,
And
and you have to speak up.
mhm.
You have to go, "No, no, I'm still in pain here. Hello," you know?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, and I feel like with someone who has like a seriously chronic, debilitating, um, terminal
Mhm.
issue, they should be doing everything they can to help with your quality of life. Like
Yes.
just
Yeah,
because you have something that's terminal doesn't mean that you should be in pain.
right, right.
That seems ridiculous to me. Um,
Or they deal with the main things because the main things are their thing, but they
mhm.
don't when they have a mystery there and that it's not continually pressing, they just, "Well, we'll deal with it, later."
And that's not to like I'm not trying to dog on every single doctor because I have had some absolutely phenomenal doctors. I've been
Yes,
very, very lucky to encounter some wonderful medical professionals. But they're doing what they can within a system that really ties their hands behind their backs a lot of the
for sure,
time.
for
So
sure.
it's really easy to point fingers, but you really don't have enough fingers to point at all of the issues in this system. So everybody's doing what they can, but when you find something like a supplement or, something maybe a little non-traditional like a chiropractor,
Mhm.
like why are we not talking about these things because they make such a huge
They
difference.
do. They
They really
absolutely do.
do. Um,
Yeah.
you talked a little bit about like when your when CF was causing you enough problems or your arthritis related CF was causing
Mhm.
you a lot of problems that you had to kind of step back from some of your other stuff. Um, I feel like that is it's such a I'm trying to phrase it the exact way I want to do. Um, I feel like when stuff like that happens, it is both heartbreaking and really empowering because it's you saying I'm doing this for my health. This is for me to keep living, keep doing all the things I need to do. Can you speak to your response to having to make those decisions a little bit?
You know, living with a degenerative disease, you at some point come to face your own mortality a lot earlier than somebody might otherwise. And in some ways, being able to process through, because I remember a specific time where I was like, this is getting bad. Right. And so my brain, I just went ahead and started thinking about it. And I thought about what are my kids going to do without me? What, so I thought about those things. I allowed myself to grieve as well. And I think in some ways I did it because it's right in front of me. And if I ignore it, I'm not living in reality. And I wanted to live in reality. And so it is a sad thing. But at the same time, I just allowed myself to kind of go through that. And it helped me. It helped me feel like, okay, I didn't have all the answers, but I certainly was able to go, this is crappy. And
This
so
sucks.
it does. It absolutely does. And I think in some ways but that was freeing to go, yeah, I've thought about all that. I've thought about all that. So then fast forward, when COVID hit, all these people were freaked out because they didn't know. And I was a little freaked out. Let me be clear at the
I
beginning.
can
At
only
the
imagine. Oh
beginning.
my gosh, you already are just trying to breathe.
Right, right. But at the same time, it didn't freak me out because I'd already dealt with facing death, right? And so I came out after facing all of those things earlier on. I came out on the other side of, look, I'm just going to live as much as I can live right now. And so I'm not going to live in fear. Because for me, living in fear can cause you to have to stay the same and to miss out on things. And I just decided I'm not going to live in fear. And every so often it would creep up, but then I would be like, no, I can't live in fear because so I die of COVID. I would have died of CF. So like
You could, and I can't tell you how much I love your response because and it sounds so I feel like anyone who doesn't have some sort of
yeah.
debilitating chronic illness or whatever, they're going to hear us talking about death and just they get, the ick. They're just like,
Yes.
"Oh, how, oh, don't think like that. Don't
Yeah.
even think about it." And I'm like, "No, that's okay.
Right. We're
These
all gonna
conversations are
die, right?
okay."
You have to face it. And I think that's what COVID did for a lot of
Oh
people.
yeah.
But some people didn't process all the way through it and say, "You know what? I'm going to just stay in fear." And that for me makes me sad because I really do feel like people are going to miss out then if they're spending so much time being afraid of death, because we all know that in the end that's how it's going to go. And it's a good thing. And so in some ways it's just part of growing old, right? So yeah, so those two were connected, and I definitely think that it was an important part of my brain journey in helping me process all the way through it. So, yeah.
I love that so much. I always because every once in a while, like this is just the kind of person I am. Like I'm a little neurotic. I'm a
Mm.
little like I have to do all the things perfectly, and I have to, my what is my because I go to therapy because I'm an
Mhm.
adult and I try to do all the
Process.
things because I'll try to solve all my problems medically with therapy with nutrition with all the things. I'm not leaving no stone left unturned.
That's great.
Um, and she said it was like as some sort of like clinical perfectionism, not OCD, but like very
Mm.
near. Um, and I will just get in my head sometimes. And I have to remember one, I have a chronic illness. Like you said, like the end comes for us all, no
It
matter what
does.
we do.
It does.
Um, and also you could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Exactly.
Like
That's
it
exactly
it doesn't matter who you are. Like life is just it'll come at you so fast.
It's just what you're used to. Like, we're used to driving, but do you realize how many fatalities happen every day in
Yeah.
driving? But we're used to that. We're used to taking a chance, right? And
Hmm.
that's the same thing what we're doing with COVID. That's the same thing we're doing with our health issues. I can pick up colds way faster. So my friends know, look, Anne, we're pretty bad over here. Maybe you don't want to come. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But we just, I'll still go sometimes and find out later that somebody's got a cold, and I'm like, "Okay, well,
Well, crap.
here we
It is what
go."
it is.
So, yeah.
Well, that actually brings me to a question that I wanted to know about. I know that with cystic fibrosis, like you have very specific sorts of like management treatment things that you need to do.
Mhm.
So can you, because I know like where you are today might be a little different from like when you were originally diagnosed. Can you speak to a little bit to the sorts of management treatment things you do today, whether it's, prescription, medical treatments, or even just like lifestyle
Yeah.
stuff?
So I do probably could take this time to tell about the positive shift in my life. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, they came out with a medicine that goes directly to the mutated cells in my body that don't work right, that are part of the cystic fibrosis mutation, and it fixes them in some way. Now, it
Wow.
hasn't fixed it for all the mutations,
It's
because
like a very specific mutation, correct?
yes, and a lot of CFers have this one mutation. There are other CFers that don't have either of the most common one, so it doesn't fix for them. But there are a whole heck of a lot of CFers where that it does fix it. And so this medicine, we have to eat it with food or take it with food, fat. But it has completely changed my life.
Oh my gosh.
So let me give you
That's phenomenal.
yes. So I'll give you an example. So my lung function has slowly but surely declined over the years. I used to be in the 80s, and now I was at that point 2.5 years ago, I was in the 20s, the high 20s, and I was being evaluated for a lung transplant. Wasn't quite on the list yet because I wasn't sick enough, but I was close. Yeah.
Isn't that just the rub? Like, I need
Yes.
this, but I'm not sick enough
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that just
in this way, I was very thankful because
yeah, that's true.
I did not have to go through a lung transplant. So I started taking this medicine, and they do a thing when they're waiting for the FDA to approve the medicine. They do a compassionate release because based on the things that they found when they were studying the medicine. And so I was able to get on the compassionate release. So I started taking the medicine 6 months before the FDA released and approved it. What was really cool is I started coughing and bringing all the junk up that has
Oh,
been sitting in my
wow.
lungs
Those
forever and
good
ever.
productive coughs.
Yes, and I didn't have to work hard at it. It just came up.
Oh,
And then what
man.
was most significant for me is I had to take a nap all the way, probably starting in college every day in order to make it to the end of the day without falling apart.
Just because you weren't
And
getting enough oxygen.
exactly, my body was working overtime. So what was interesting is I don't need naps now. And I have incredible amounts of energy that
Oh
there
my
was no way
gosh.
at the time I could do. So when I was being evaluated for lung transplant, I was taking numerous naps on oxygen all the time, had a hard time making dinner, those sorts of things. And I was it was a complete 180 and started going the other way, 360. I don't know, whatever. So then my lung function is back up at 50 now. That was the highest I've hit is 50 because I have a lot of scarring from all the
Mhm.
different things that I had, but I'll take 50, man. I mean, I can
Yeah.
breathe like crazy. So that's been a really and what's cool is they're starting to take us off all these medicines. So I
Oh, like
used to
other
have
meds that
yes,
oh,
yes.
wow. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes. So now I still have to do my treatments twice a day because it
Mhm.
opens me up. But
Is it like a nebulizer
yes, a
treatment?
nebulizer, yeah, and
I
it
know all about that.
yeah, see? Yeah,
I
all
had
those things.
I had pneumonia all growing up, like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
so you're talking like, just researching all this stuff about cystic fibrosis and, like, not being able to breathe, it, like, kinda triggered me a little bit because I know
Mm,
that fear of not being able to take a full breath and, like,
yes.
coughing and you can't, like and I don't have cystic fibrosis. I
Yes,
don't
yes.
have a fraction of the understanding of what it is like to live with that. So like
Yeah,
hearing all the stuff about like you being able to have those productive coughs and like getting that air like you don't you take it so for granted when
yes.
you can breathe and when you have no trouble breathing.
That's true.
And like hearing the success that you're having right now, like you're saying 50%. I think anyone else would be like 50%, that's not a lot. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. When you can't breathe, when your lungs aren't doing what they're supposed to do, that taking that breath of air, it's literally figuratively life-giving.
Yes, for
It
sure.
just I'm I'm just like sending so much love your way because I feel like I can feel that experience with you, and I'm so happy that that's working for you and that's doing good things.
Yes, yes. It is a blessing. It is absolutely a blessing. I think for me, that has been really the energy level has been unreal. And so it's changed the course of my life. It's changed the course of my life. So yes. So you had asked about all the different things that I do. And typically
Yes.
what I end up doing is I have medicine that I still have to take with my food. I
Mhm.
still do that. I take a handful of medicines that do reflux stuff and that kind of thing in the evening. I for I have my arthritis medicine that I still take, but I also have to take my vitamins. I've done this trial and error because I get lazy.
Well,
Macy.
when you have to do so many things, like other people don't get it. Like when
Yeah,
you have to take so many meds every day, you have to, do certain exercises, you have to do certain practices like every
right.
single day. It's a lot.
Yeah, so you
It's so
skip
much.
here and there, and so
Yep.
if I skip one or 2 doses, I can tell because I start to get achy.
Oh yeah.
So the combination of those 2 things together and, then just doing my breathing treatments, and that's it. I did just finish a course of IV antibiotics, so every so often, if I get a cold and it stays we tried different things to try to get rid of the cold without, doing IV antibiotics, but it had been 18 months since I had done it before.
Oh
And
wow.
so, yeah, so it's good. It works good. It's a pain, but I can do it at home. I don't have to be in the hospital or anything like that. So it's pretty easy, you know, considering.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, considering all the like this because I'm thinking about the people that I've known in my past who has cystic fibrosis, and it was when I was like a teenager, so I
Mhm.
knew teenagers who had debilitating cystic fibrosis,
Yes.
who were not doing well, and I'm sending little prayers up to them because they have passed on at this point,
Yeah.
and they didn't have a lot of the options that people have today.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I remember, talking to them and interacting with them, and they were doing all these experimental things, and a lot of the research that I saw, a lot of the professionals are saying be open to experimental stuff, be open to new therapies and things. And I'm so grateful that there's something out there that's helping the majority of people with cystic
Yes.
fibrosis right
Yeah.
now, because it's so needed.
It
It
is. It is. Yeah, I think it's important that we help fund some of that stuff for sure, for sure. So that has been really I've been so grateful for the amount of effort and time that the CF Foundation has put into all these medicines and are always trying to develop new things to help us. So, yeah, it's been amazing.
this is like a super random question. I'm always very curious about nutrition,
Yeah.
and some people, whatever their illness or diseases, they don't really have to worry about nutrition at all. But in doing my research, seeing it affects your mucus, and you have thicker mucus in your lungs, and it can get in your digestive tract and all these other things. I know a lot of the things we eat can impact mucus production. I don't know if this is something that's impacted you at all. Do you have to eat a certain way to help manage any of your any man, my brain just stopped right in the middle of that sentence.
It's good.
Symptoms. There we go.
I did I kinda delved into a rabbit hole at one point when I
As you do.
yes, exactly, when I was looking at, trying to manage some of the things that were going on, but, I would try things, and it didn't seem to really make much of a difference because more importantly, I had to eat a lot of fat because I
Mm,
needed to gain weight, and that was the one thing that they were always pushing, gain weight, gain weight, gain weight, gain weight. And when you're sick, like, when you're really sick, you don't wanna eat,
yeah.
you don't feel hungry and you feel kinda sick to your stomach, and so it makes it all that much more pressure, to do it. At one point, I actually did get oh, a feeding tube, late before my, during the time that I was being evaluated for a lung
Mm.
transplant. So, and that was awful and it didn't work.
That's what I hear.
There were
That's
so
the
many
experience that I
issues
hear.
with it. It was just like this there is no point to this. So, So I was very happy to get that back out once I started on this medicine. So I think in some ways that the nutrition has been good. My mom raised me right in helping me see that I needed vegetables and fruit and all of those different the good stuff for you. And so I'm trying to teach my teenagers about that. It's not working.
I was going to say, how's that going?
Although my son just recently said, "Hey mom, can you get some spinach at the store?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?
Why,
What
yes.
what's that?"
Absolutely.
Because he likes omelets with spinach in it now. Okay, I'll
That's a
get you some
start.
spinach.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think, I've learned a lot about that just from my mom, but really, it's been just eat as much as you can eat so that you keep weight on. So, now I don't have that trouble. That's the other thing that this fixed because the pancreas, which is what causes which is where all of the enzymes and the fat and that are all, what's it called? Um,
Um,
what's the word? Anyway, that's where they
I know,
get
I know what
that's
you're talking
where
about.
the pancreas does the work there to gain all those. And, it didn't work right because of all the mucus that was in there. And it's all cleared out now. So my gut is much healthier because of it. And I actually can gain weight almost to the fault of the things. So
I mean,
okay.
you win some, you lose some.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, I gotta change my eating. Not so much fat. So but it's good. It's been good to know.
That's fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
and I love that, like, you learned about nutrition from your mom and you
Yeah.
are trying to instill that in your boys. Like,
Yes.
that's the way you got to do it. Like,
Yeah.
the younger you start, the better.
Yes.
And especially, I for my personal experience, I'm the middle out of 7 children.
Oh, wow.
And I have one other sibling with some chronic health issues, but the rest of my siblings fit as a fiddle.
Yeah.
Just do whatever they want to do. And they kind of just throw their bodies around. Like,
Mhm.
they
Right.
they really just kind of, like, I wouldn't say that they take their health for granted, because they know all the things they should do. Like,
Yeah.
they know what they should eat, they know how they should exercise, they know the vitamins they need to be taking. But they have that just
Eh.
ignorance is bliss,
Mhm.
that you, until you've lived it, and
Yes.
until you have that experience of your health failing you, of your body not being able to do the things you need or want it to do, it's a lot harder to take those kinds of things seriously. And obviously, like, you and me really know what that's like we're like, well, if I do these and these things, my day is going to go more like this, I will feel this, my energy will be at these levels. um but I wish, one of my hopes, because obviously, like, our audience here is a lot of other people with illnesses, chronic, terminal injuries of whatever nature.
Mhm.
But I really hope that we get people who are paying attention, who are maybe trying to educate themselves for friends or family
Yes.
members who have these issues. Just because if everybody can be a little more compassionate, a little more understanding, whether it's caring or interacting with other people who have these issues, or just caring for themselves, having
Yeah.
a little more grace for themselves and whatever they're going through. Because even just the healthiest person, aging,
Yes. Oh my
aging
gosh.
comes for us all. So
Yes.
I feel like if we talk about these things, if we share these stories, it's going to lift that veil, and it's going to help people see what it's like to deal with this stuff, and to age and to manage symptoms and stuff like that. So it helps everyone.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I only have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
My first question is, what would you tell someone else who is going through what you've been through? Like, maybe they're at the beginning of their journey or something. What would you tell them?
I think I think I would probably encourage them to don't look to your doctors to solve all your problems, to advocate for yourself with your doctor and nurses, etc. If they ignore you, call them back and to really just pursue. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to look into, an integrative medicine doctor, somebody that knows more of the nutritional side of things, knows more. outside of what your doctors may suggest. So, um, not necessarily going into cuckooville, because you can do that. There are people that
That's an
do.
option. Not recommended, but
But look into who makes your vitamins and how solid are they, and look into that and learn more about that, because I think that that's one of the things that doctors don't know, and a lot of people have developed things because of what was lacking. And so we need to look at those things and go, okay, what are we lacking here? We're still using recommended daily allowances from like 1920s, when they
yeah,
were
oh my
trying to
gosh.
fight diseases that we don't have anymore. So much vitamins can I be taking to potentially help with some of these things? And I think that the doctors aren't going to talk to you about that. And it was only after I did a lot of research that I figured out some things. And so I think you just got to research, as much as you don't want to go to WebMD to be your doctor, you do certainly want to go to Google and see what else is around, how other people are fighting their fight, right? So,
That's one thing that, like, and I won't harp on this for too long. Connecting with other people
yeah,
who have either your condition or similar conditions, that's been a game changer for me and for so many other people that I've talked to.
yes,
And I know that, like, people in those communities aren't always medical professionals, so you have to take it with a grain of salt.
for sure.
You're definitely going to run into some snake oil territory, um, but
Yep.
it's also other people who have said, this works for me, this didn't. Maybe it would work for you, maybe it won't. And it's also just other people who know precisely what you're going through.
Yes.
So that is, I cannot recommend finding your people wherever
Yes.
they may be. Find your people, connect with them. You'll have a whole second family.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
My absolute last question. I swear I won't. I won't take up too much more of your time. You've been on a heck of a journey. You've been through so much. After everything that you've gone through, how does it feel to be in the place where you are right now?
Uh, it feels amazing. Like, I feel like that, I've been given a second life, and um, there's a Bible verse, and sounds crazy, but there's a Bible verse that says every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father. And I do feel like that the Lord has blessed me, because not every disease gets a second chance, right? Not every disease has a miracle pill.
Yeah,
We all wish it. We do. We all wish it. But
boy, do we.
yeah, but for me, that's what I feel like. So that make it it's a lens that I need to look through more often, to be thankful for even having hardships, because I'm still here. I don't have to take 50,000 pills because I had a lung transplant. Like, all of these different things that if I can look through those lenses more often, I can just be so much more joyful to just be here, and to even be struggling with other stuff, right? Because I'm raising teenagers.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your story with us. I feel so grateful to get to hear your perspective, and I know that our listeners are really grateful to get to hear your story as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
So my website for podcast management is surroundconsulting.com, but I'm on Facebook and Thompson Fickel. You can find me, ask me questions, send me a message. That'd be great. I'd love that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you talked about, people being able to donate, help fund research and stuff. One of the bigger organizations that I found was cff.org/donate.
Yes.
So if you feel so inclined and you would like to donate to promote more research, more advocacy for cystic fibrosis, please head over there, and donate what you can. It's, what you don't have to go bankrupt, but a couple dollars here and there definitely would make a difference. And that wraps up this episode of the Warrior Stories podcast. Thank you all so much. If any of this resonated with you, definitely give us a like, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching or listening to this from. And that's it. We love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.